it's going to be. And
That's the main issue that I think World of Warcraft has, is raid logging. That's the thing that... Do you guys remember, like, who played BDO the first month of the game release? Who played BDO month 1? Or Lost Ark month 1? Mainly BDO. Do you remember how fucking cool that was? Whenever you'd log on and everybody would be out there fishing and people would be life skilling and the game really felt like a modern fantasy world that you were going into? I think that one of the big mistakes that World of Warcraft made over the years, and I think that a lot of games make over the years, is that they double down on their high frequency content, and they do so at the expense of the feel of the world. And I think if you really go back and you look at a lot of, like, how do you make the greatest MMO? I think one of the best ways to do that is you have to inform yourself of what content are people consuming in mass right now for MMO video games. Well, video games aren't part of that equation. But you know what is? Sword Art Online, Shangri-La Frontier, Solo Leveling, Konosuba, and Overlord. I can come up with more, but that's a good start. Why is it that so many isekai animes basically follow a Dungeons and Dragons MMO paradigm, but not a single video game can replicate that experience? It's because they don't understand it. They don't understand what's behind that experience. And if you listen to the developers, and that's not the correct word, the designers of Classic WoW, people like Kevin Jordan, for example, if you listen to them talk about the game, there's a level and a quality of thoughtfulness and intelligence that you just don't really hear very often inside of modern developers. Because a lot of these old developers that were MMO creators, they recognized, and they even said, you know, like, oh, this kind of came in by accident, right? It's like, and I think that that's the serendipity of genius, is that it's like what I said before, where like really great games like, Super Smash Brothers Melee, there are these onion rings, or sorry, like layers to the onion that it just gets better and better and better. And that's the reason why it's still a competitive game 25 years later, right? And I think that conversely, bad video games are just an onion of shit that just gets worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. And so the point that I'm making is that a lot of these old designers understood that these video games, it was 50% game design and 50% psychology. And you can argue about the percentages all you want, but the one thing that's true for sure is that both of these things needed to be considered. And a lot of developers now focus on analytics. They focus on a, philosophy that they have, or, the way a boss works or anything like that. None of these things really matter. None of these things actually make a difference at all. What really matters is if somebody is able to log into the game and feel like they're transformed into a new world, into a different universe, and into a place where they truly can have a adventure inside of. And I think that that's what a lot of the isekai animes really do, is that they give somebody a transcendent adventure that goes beyond what they've been experienced in their real life. Fundamentally, at the beginning of every single one of them, that's usually what happens, right? Somebody dies, they're locked into the story or some other variation of this. If you can't deliver that experience, and that experience is not delivered inside of like Stormwind and Retail WoW, it's not delivered by Stormwind and Retail WoW, where it's effectively a glorified and very fancy with nice graphics waiting room for a menu screen. That's not a video game. It is, but it's not an MMO. That's not a fantasy world. That's a menu. And I think that people that are looking for MMOs, and I think that there's a huge amount of people that are looking for MMOs, and another example of this, I think that kids still do want games like this. And one of the ways that I can tell that is the way that kids play Roblox. Kids play Roblox, and they play games that are not necessarily super hard games. They're not playing games that are super, difficult necessarily. Maybe they do sometimes, but not all the time. But What I think a lot of kids seem to be getting out of Roblox is the interaction and the community that's created by the game. So in a way, Roblox has created a lot of that MMO feel outside of an MMO. And what's happening with World of Warcraft and what's happened with a lot of MMOs is that they focused on boss fights. They focused on challenges. They focused on FOMO. They focused on PvP. But they haven't focused on the prime user experience and the way that a person feels playing the game. They start at the conclusion rather than the beginning. And I think that that's something that Classic WoW really understood. And I think that's why it's still successful 20 years later. And I think that the best video games encapsulate that throughout history. Dark Souls 1, Elden Ring. Expedition 33 is very new. I don't want to use that as an example. Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past. Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. Super Mario 64. Super Smash Bros. Melee. These are games that will be transcendent video games that people will be playing in 50 years. League? Maybe original League. I don't know. All of these games have a feel to them. And there's something that goes beyond just very simply playing this game. Yeah, Bloodborne, maybe, right? I'd have to think about that. Maybe Bloodborne. And so Sekiro, yes. And the quality there, it's transcendent beyond other games.